In Nehemiah's day, the Jews joyfully embarked on a massive building project. With Jehovah's direction and help, they were able to finish the work in just 52 days.
You look like you've been working.
During the production of the film, Nehemiah, the Joy of Jehovah is Your Stronghold, the walls of Jerusalem were built once again, but this time at Mount Ebo Studios in Brewster, New York. A variety of skills were needed to produce this drama, with many volunteers coming together using their time, energy, and abilities to create an accurate teaching tool. And they found great joy in their work. Good planning was needed right at the start of production. Every day began with a scriptural discussion and prayer. The costume and makeup departments prepared the actors to appear on set. Yes, building is a legacy of God's people. Nehemiah was one of many who throughout history devoted their energies to supporting the work of building. In a similar way, the production team that made Nehemiah, the Joy of Jehovah is Your Stronghold, joyfully worked hard to produce a film that helps build love and appreciation in the hearts of God's people.
A variety of skills were needed to create this drama, including the skill of applying a fake beard. So yes, we've just been watching a behind-the-scenes segment from the April 2021 JW Broadcasting episode, apparently intended to impress Jehovah's Witnesses with the resources and effort and energies that were put into creating the drama that was shown last year at the 2020 Always Rejoice convention, a drama about Nehemiah. And look, I always enjoy watching behind-the-scenes montages because I find the art of filmmaking fascinating. I love to see teamwork and collaboration in a creative process where there are so many different moving parts, and these all have to come together to create a piece that is seamless and tells a story in a complete and compelling way. I find that whole process fascinating, and it's always interesting to see it. It's just a shame that in this case, all of this effort has gone into producing something so utterly forgettable as a Jehovah's Witness drama. Because really, what's the legacy here? I mean, if you're watching a behind-the-scenes documentary about almost any other film, you know, let's say like a Hollywood production, let's say a Star Wars film or The Mandalorian or Star Trek or something, you're watching something that bare minimum is going to inspire people. You know, even if the storytelling isn't great, even if the acting isn't great, even if there are plot holes, even if there are problems here and there, overall, you're going to entertain people and you're going to inspire people. And the story is going to be roughly compelling. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been picked up by a Hollywood director and it wouldn't have been given all of this funding. That's not the case here. So the funding has been thrown at this story, whether it's a good story or not, because we're talking about a cult that has made it its goal to just churn out propaganda about the Bible, regardless of whether the stories themselves are interesting. And in the case of the Nehemiah story, as I commented at the time in my rebuttal, what a dull story. The walls of Jerusalem are in decay, and Nehemiah rides to the rescue and rallies the people, and they build them again. That's the story. It's a really boring story. I mean, you could argue, yes, but they had all sorts of opposition, and the non-Jews were scheming and trying to thwart their efforts. And, you know, Nehemiah also needed to get the people back on track spiritually by invoking these new scrolls that they'd suddenly found that weren't at all just newly written, which Ezra had uncovered, reminding of the need for fanaticism in driving away family members who didn't speak Hebrew and who weren't observing the religious rituals. Yeah, there's all that side to the story as well, but I don't think that it makes the story any better. If anything, it makes the whole thing more questionable, because there's very clearly a fanatical, extremist, fundamentalist undertone to the whole thing, which hints at the same streak in the organization behind the production and the way that it breaks apart families and the way it stigmatizes outsiders and makes everything outside of the organization appear evil and scheming in some way. So, yeah, the whole story, when it wasn't dull, it was disturbing. And doesn't that sort of describe almost any drama that this organization does? Yes, it's lovely to see people working together and collaborating. And incidentally, some of you will have noticed that the guy who appears to be on the crew, maybe he's a director, I don't know, but this is the same guy who appeared in, I think, the 2017 convention. The Don't Give Up convention, I think, was where we saw this guy in a dramatization that was essentially pinning the blame for 1975 on ordinary witnesses. That was the purpose of this particular dramatization. So it's interesting to see this individual who played this role in that particular dramatization now being on the production crew. It's not mind-blowing or anything, granted, but it does lead me to wonder whether there is utility in using actors who've been in previous productions and keeping them within the filmmaking family. Because what you absolutely don't want when you're producing this video propaganda is for someone who was so visible in appearing in a role in one of these dramas to later wake up, perhaps because they've been sidelined and they're not being used anymore, and they feel like they've been cast adrift. The last thing you want are these people waking up and speaking out against the organization. So whether it's intentional or not, I don't know, but there's certainly utility in keeping them involved, even if it's in a non-acting role where they're behind the camera. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. It was interesting to see a familiar face. But yes, ultimately, it's kind of sad in a way that all of this effort and all of this skill and all of this talent is being ploughed into something as instantly forgettable as a film about a dull Bible story.